Hello, welcome to the very first episode of this brand new NBA 2K22 Toronto Raptors MyGM series. Man, that's a mouthful. The Toronto Raptors, look, they managed to get their very first championship for their franchise back in the 2018-19 NBA season while being led by the stellar play of none other than Kawhi Leonard. I mean, adding Kawhi to that Raptors team in the offseason led to a lot of question marks around the league. His injury situation was very confusing, and it looked like there was a lot of miscommunication and distrust between him and the Spurs front office, which eventually led to the move. It was a one-year rental, yes, but Kawhi established himself as one of the top players in the league during the playoffs that year. After winning the championship, Kawhi walked away in free agency to the Los Angeles Clippers and formed a little super team of his own alongside Paul George, while Danny Green set up shop across the road with the Lakers. Other than that, the Raptors didn't really lose any other pieces of their core and decided to run it back. They ended the season with a 53-19 record, which was actually on pace for more wins than they had during their championship year. Pascal Siakam was a big part of this. He made the jump from a quality starter to an all-star, while Norman Powell, Fred VanVleet and OG Anunoby also accepted bigger roles on the squad. Despite all of these jumps in production, the Raptors ended up fizzing out in the playoffs after a Game 7 loss in the second round to the Boston Celtics. Now, if we jump forward to the 2020-21 NBA season, the Raptors ended up dropping Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka at free agency, both of which were integral parts of that 2019 championship run. This, along with the relocation to Tampa Bay, injury problems, along with a slew of other issues, led the team to finish as the 12th seed in the Eastern Conference, which was quite disappointing. And that's where we come in. It's my job to assess the team from here and plan out our best path to another NBA championship. Luckily for us, we managed to secure the 4th overall pick in the 2021 NBA draft. Then, we surprised the NBA world by taking Scottie Barnes after everyone thought we were pretty much a lock to take Jalen Suggs. While you could debate that Jalen Suggs would have been able to more accurately fill the shoes that Kyle Lowry left behind, Scottie will be able to come in and facilitate the offense with his unique vision. He's a point guard at heart despite being 6'9", and he's got eons of talent to back that up. One of his main plus sides is his defensive versatility. With his large frame and 7'2" wingspan, he should be capable of guarding 1 through 4 with ease. His shooting ability may spark some concern since it is a little bit inconsistent. He only took 2 3-point attempts in his lone season at Florida State and hit only 27.5% of them. Because of this, I want to make sure that we have a great shot doctor in our coaching staff. So this is a new NBA 2K22 feature, and hopefully it'll help us develop Scottie's jumper over time. He's shown to be a hard worker, being a first in the gym and last to leave kind of guy, and that's exactly what we want for someone who has potential to be our franchise cornerstone. I'm super excited for him to develop throughout this first season and think he can be a really special player for us. Speaking of special players, we've also uncovered a bit of a hidden gem in OG Anunoby, who has progressively improved his game throughout his 4 seasons in the NBA. He's a brilliant defender and his shooting efficiency and volume have scaled together, which is a really good sign for his future progression. I hope he can make the next jump and become an elite scorer. However, he already gives us a fair bit on both sides of the ball, so it's not that big of a deal if he can't. Moving forwards, both Scottie and OG are going to be the 2 players who we mark as untouchable due to their high potential. Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet are 2 of the guys who were integral to our playoff run back in 2019, and they're both sort of question marks for me right now. They're both good players, don't get me wrong, but it comes back to our objective for the team right now, which we need to figure out. Are we trying to hit the reset switch and start a complete rebuild? If that's the case, we might need to look to trade them while their value is pretty high. However, if we want to try and retool with what we have and make a deep playoff push this year, we might need to give up on some of our other young talent on the roster. I guess it depends on what we decide to do, and we'll probably figure out the answers to these questions as we get through preseason and head into the actual season. It's important to note that Siakam suffered a torn labrum in his left shoulder in a game against the Grizzlies back on May 5th, 2021. He's been ruled out of training camp and he'll be out for a month or two into the season as well. Siakam is one of our most talented players, so hopefully it doesn't impact us too much. Fred VanVleet has shown that he's a pretty scrappy defender with how he's able to disrupt other players on defense. We saw Fred share a lot of the ball handling duties with Kyle Lowry over the last few seasons as he progressively got better, and he became a really good scorer during that time as well. I mean, this is especially during the championship run, but he was a clutch performer time and time again, and if I'm going to be honest, that's one of his biggest selling points. Having that championship DNA between him, OG, and Pascal is a really good look, and hopefully that can rub off on a lot of the younger guys. Honestly, we have a good mix of experienced players and young players with really high motors, which I think is the perfect match. The only other remnant of our championship run was Kyle Lowry, who we managed to send off with a little sign and trade. He felt like one of the main prizes in a pretty lackluster free agency class, and the fact that we could send him to Miami and get back a serviceable veteran in Goran Dragic and a young gun with a lot of potential in Precious Achiuwa helps us a lot. We did have to soak up around $19 million in salary for Goran Dragic, and I reckon we'll look to move him at some point in the season, especially if we bring in a younger point guard. I know that the Mavericks and Pelicans were among the teams interested in a veteran point guard, since they're both teams that kind of need more guard depth and ball handling. We did get this quote from Goran Dragic earlier in the offseason, and I quote, "Toronto is not my preferred destination. I have higher ambitions. We'll see." And I guess we will see. On the other hand, Precious's defensive versatility will definitely help him slot into our current team, which has a lot of potential to switch on defense without causing any mismatch issues. Now, we did trade away one of our most promising scorers in Norman Powell last season, and that was basically so we didn't have to pay him an absurd amount of money. In return, we got Gary Trent Jr. back. The thing is, we would have spent a similar amount of money on Norm. I mean, look at the contract we signed Gary Trent Jr. to for the next 3 years, and then look at Norman Powell's contract over the next 5 years. Regardless, Gary has shown a lot of scoring potential with his little tenure on the Raptors. The bonus is that he's a lot younger than Norman Powell was. His best performance last season with us was a 44-point game against the Cavs in April of 2021. You know, the potential is definitely there if he gets in a groove, and with Kyle Lowry leaving, we'll need a player to come in and pick up the scoring load. If that's what we're getting from Gary Trent Jr., that would be amazing. Chris Boucher is another one of those guys who made a fairly big jump last season. His best game came 2 days before Gary Trent's 44-point game, where Chris actually managed to drop 38 points and 19 rebounds himself. I mean, not many players can do that. He's 6'9" and only weighs 200 pounds. He's got a bit of a lanky Kevin Durant-esque build, and because of this, his potential to block shots is crazy good, but if he's going up against some of those bigger centers, he might struggle a tiny bit. He'll probably be the one who we start at center, while sharing minutes with Khem Birch and Precious Achiuwa. We locked up Khem Birch with a 3-year $20 million contract during the offseason as well, and I think this is pretty well justified. In the 2021 season, he was playing mediocre for an Orlando Magic team who still had Nikola Vucevic soaking up a lot of the center minutes. He came to Toronto and gave us a solid 30 minutes a game, while putting up averages of 12 points and 8 rebounds, while showing a glimpse of a 3-point stroke as well. He'll be a lot more viable against some of the bigger centers, since he does have more size on him than Chris Boucher does, but for the price we're paying for him, he's definitely worth it. The main concern that I have with our centers is that they're all 6'9". I mean, the majority of our team is around 6'7" to 6'9" if we don't include the guards. Like I mentioned earlier, this could be really good for defending pick and rolls and being able to switch on demand, but it could pose some issues as we go up against some of the bigger teams. Now, we have a few other guys with some promise. Yuta Watanabe, also known as the Chosen One, has shown some two-way potential, and so is our young guard in Malachi Flynn, whose playmaking is already at a pretty good level. Svi Mikhailuk and Isaac Bonga are also on the roster, but you know, we'll kind of need to see how all of them fit in the rotation during the next episode. And during the next episode, we will be getting into training camp and the preseason, and this will obviously help us figure out a lot of these questions and start building up our team chemistry. So, that's the team. That's our Toronto Raptors. With all of that being said, I think we have all of the building blocks of a great team here, and with Nick Nurse, a great coach at the helm of all of these players, I'm sure we can bring Toronto back to the promised land.